The alarms didn't scream, they whispered, like something was afraid to wake the dark. And in that dark, she stepped into his mind for the first time, only to feel him staring back. A shock hit her chest. How could he see her inside his own broken thoughts? Who had built a memory of her face before she was ever born? And why did it feel like she was trespassing in a place that somehow already knew her name? Her breath trembled as the psychic chamber pulsed, shifting from threat to wonder, from fear to something older than either world. The air thickened with unspoken questions, each one heavier than the last, dragging her deeper into a truth she wasn't ready to face. When his voice finally rose from the silence, not spoken but felt, it carried a warmth she didn't believe his kind could make. And as their minds touched in the dim glow, she realized the danger wasn't losing herself, but finding something she was never meant to love. She staggered back as the link snapped, breath shaking, heart slamming against her ribs like it was trying to break free. Nothing in her training had prepared her for a mind that could push back without violence, just quiet recognition, almost like he had been waiting for her. The chamber lights flickered in soft pulses, shifting her fear into confusion, then into the kind of dread that came from unanswered questions. Why had he seen her before? Why did his memory hold traces of a life she had never lived? And why, in the echo of his presence, did she feel less like an intruder and more like someone returning home? Her commander's voice cut through the fog, sharp and impatient, demanding answers she didn't have and accusing her of hesitating. She tried to explain the impossible. His mind wasn't empty, nor weaponized. It was awake, curious, almost warm. Every word felt wrong in her mouth, too fragile to survive military ears. The commander dismissed her confusion as weakness, ordering another dive, louder, harsher, forcing her to confront the truth she was trying to outrun. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of what she felt inside his thoughts. When she re-entered the chamber, he lifted his eyes. Not defiant, not hostile, but searching. That simple gesture shook her more than the psychic storm had. She felt the pressure of his unspoken questions brushing against her thoughts, gentle but relentless. The room felt smaller as tension twisted between them, shifting from fear into something fragile and strangely human. And for the first time, she wondered if breaking him might mean breaking herself. As she prepared for another dive, her hands hovered above the neural interface, shaking with a truth she wouldn't admit out loud. His presence lingered in her, warm and patient, like he wanted her to understand something he couldn't say. The hum of the machinery rose, steady and calm, as if urging her forward. She inhaled slowly, letting the fear soften into resolve. Whatever waited inside his mind, memory, warning, or something far more dangerous, she would face it. Not because she was ordered to, but because a part of her needed to know why he remembered her at all. The moment she slipped back into his mind, the world twisted, not as a battlefield, but as a memory breaking apart in slow motion. Colors bled like wounded light, shifting from cold blues to trembling reds, each pulse carrying fragments of fear he had never been allowed to feel. He stood at the center of the storm, no longer a silent weapon, but a man trying to understand the pain inside him. She felt his confusion wash through her, soft at first, then overwhelming, as if every emotion he discovered echoed inside her chest. Why did his awakening feel like her own? Why did his memories react to her presence, as if she belonged in them? The mystery tightened around them, breathless and magnetic, pulling her deeper into the truth he was trying, desperately, to shield from her. The storm calmed, revealing a corridor of memories he tried to hide, metallic chambers, cold restraints, voices that spoke his name like a serial number. She walked beside him through the ghost of his past, feeling each scar as if it settled into her own skin. He didn't speak, yet his emotions spiraled through her. Shame he never earned, fear he never admitted, hope he never understood. And beneath it all, a pull toward her, faint, but undeniable. Something inside him recognized her even here. The deeper she went, the more the memories shifted. No longer his creation, but moments she couldn't explain. Images of her face appeared in places she'd never been, carrying emotions she never felt: comfort, longing, sorrow. Her pulse quickened as she tried to deny the impossible. How could he remember her before they met? Why did every memory place her at his side, like fate had already chosen a path neither of them understood? She felt him watching her reaction, unsure if he had done something wrong, and that uncertainty cracked something tender inside her. The psychic tether tightened suddenly, pulling their thoughts closer until she felt the rhythm of his heartbeat pulsing inside her head. Fear flickered, not of him, but of what they were becoming. She sensed him struggling to contain emotions he didn't know how to carry, each one rising like a wave threatening to drown them both. When she reached out to steady him, their connection sparked with something warm and startling. For a moment, the war, the mission, the lies, everything fell away. Only the two of them remained, suspended in a truth that terrified her more than any enemy. The connection cracked like glass, hurling her back into her body with a gasp. She braced against the table, heart pounding, vision blurred. He remained still in the neural rig, but she could feel the ripple of his emotions: worry, confusion, an unfamiliar ache that mirrored her own. Everything she learned inside him pointed to one truth. He wasn't resisting her to protect himself. He was resisting to protect her. And that terrified her more than anything she had seen inside his mind. The third dive began with silence, but not the empty kind. This silence breathed, pulsing with a steady rhythm that wasn't hers. His mind opened like a dim hallway leading into a chamber of blurred moments, some his, some hers, and some belonging to neither world. A chill ran across her skin as she stepped forward, watching the scenes twist into visions of places she had never seen yet somehow remembered. He appeared beside her, not as a prisoner, but as a presence shaped by worry and wonder. As their thoughts brushed, she felt his longing sharpen, warm and aching, as if he had spent a lifetime searching for her. Why did his memories paint her as someone he had lost? Why did the universe feel smaller each time they drifted closer? And why did it hurt, quietly, deeply, when she felt the weight of what he wasn't saying? The memories unfolded like pages torn from two different books, one written in light, the other in scars. She watched his early years reflected in cold metal, experiments, commands, punishments. But then the scenes bent, reshaping into soft echoes of her face, gentle hands she never offered, words she never spoke. Each false memory pressed into her chest with quiet desperation, whispering a truth she could not name. He didn't understand why these visions existed. He only knew they mattered. She sensed his fear rising, not of pain, but of losing something he didn't yet have the words to claim. They stepped deeper, crossing a glowing threshold where reality broke into mirrored fragments. Each shard reflected them together, standing on alien soil, walking through human ruins, reaching for each other across galaxies. None of it happened, yet each image pulsed with emotions too real to ignore. Her breath trembled as she felt his hope bloom inside the link, fragile and bright. She wanted to pull back, to protect the boundaries of who she was, but every mirrored world showed the same impossible truth. They were always connected. Somehow, somewhere, before memory or war. A low hum vibrated through the mindscape, and the mirrored worlds shattered into a wave of light, beckoning them toward a single point: the node. Its presence felt ancient, like a heartbeat older than stars. As they approached, its call thickened, weaving through their thoughts as if it recognized them both. She felt his hand. Unspoken, unreal, yet undeniably there. Rest against her mind, steadying her as the node's power surged. For one brief moment, she sensed what it was trying to show them. They weren't two minds colliding. They were fragments of something meant to be whole. The vision collapsed, throwing her back into her body with a force that stole her breath. She clutched the edge of the chair, heart racing, mind echoing with the node's impossible whisper. Across from her, he lifted his eyes slowly. Confusion and fear tangled behind them. He felt it too. The resonance, the recognition, the pull neither of them could fight. For the first time, he looked less like a weapon and more like a man trying to understand why his heart beat faster when she was near. And she realized with a painful truth. The deeper she went into him, the more she risked losing the walls she had spent a lifetime building. When the link opened again, the world didn't form gently. It rushed into existence as if it had been waiting behind a locked door. Light cracked across the sky, revealing pieces of his past, and hers stitched together by a force older than memory. She felt him beside her, not as an intruder, but as a pulse of warmth threading into her thoughts, steady and unsure. The node's echo trembled through them, nudging their minds closer until their emotions blurred at the edges. She sensed his fear of hurting her, his wonder at feeling anything at all, and a quiet longing that wrapped around her like gravity. Each step deeper shook her walls, shifting fear into tension, tension into aching truth. Something inside him was awakening. Something that recognized her soul even when she didn't recognize herself. And she knew, once they crossed this threshold, nothing between them would ever return to what it was. They walked through a field of floating memory shards, each one humming with emotions too raw to belong to a manufactured soldier. She saw the tremble in his thoughts as childhood fragments, if they could be called that, flickered into view. Cold rooms, metal hands, voices stripped of kindness. But woven between them were softer visions that weren't his at all. Her reflection smiling, her hand resting on his, her voice whispering promises she had never spoken. He didn't understand why these memories existed, but he held them protectively, like treasures he was afraid she might reject. The tenderness in that fear hit her harder than any psychic blow. She reached for a shard glowing with her likeness, and it warmed against her touch, an impossible emotion crossing the boundary between their minds. The world shifted again, revealing a quiet valley of silver light where memories dissolved into pure feeling. Here, thoughts carried weight, emotions shaped the air like soft smoke. She felt his presence deepen, wrapping around her mind not with force, but with a trembling vulnerability he didn't know how to hide. Every emotion he discovered echoed through her. Fear, hope, wonder, spreading warmth into places she believed long frozen. She tried to resist, to remind herself that this was a mission, not a bond. But each step brought them closer until even the space between their thoughts felt fragile. In this valley of unspoken truth, she realized something terrifying. He wasn't changing because of her. He was becoming who he was always meant to be, and she was the catalyst he had been created to find. A deep resonance rolled through the valley, shaking the ground beneath them. The node was calling. Its voice wasn't sound, but vibration. Ancient, patient, echoing through their bones. The world peeled open into a vast chamber of living light where the node pulsed like a star, trapped beneath the earth. She felt him tense, instinct urging him to shield her from a force far beyond either of them. But she stepped forward instead, drawn by something she couldn't name. As their palms brushed, a surge of shared emotion washed over them. Recognition, longing, fear, and something warmer that tightened both their breaths. The node's light swelled, illuminating the space between them, revealing a truth they had been circling without understanding. Their minds weren't merging by accident. They were being summoned. Light erupted through the chamber, striking her chest with a force that stole her breath. She felt his panic explode through the link, raw and desperate, as he reached for her without hesitation. The node surged again, binding their minds so tightly she couldn't tell where her heartbeat ended and his began. Memories not yet lived flashed behind her eyes, futures filled with fire, loss, and something beautiful she couldn't bear to name. He held her steady in the storm, emotion breaking through every layer of his engineered restraint, and in that fragile, blazing moment she knew the truth the node had shown them both. The war was not built to keep them apart. It was built to prevent what they could become together. The world snapped into form with a ringing silence, the kind that follows a truth too big to ignore. They stood in a drifting ocean of memories, none belonging to any single mind, all older than war. She felt the node's echo vibrating beneath every breath, showing them pieces of a history buried by both species. Visions of humans and aliens, once walking together, flickered like half-forgotten dreams, bound by a harmony that felt impossibly familiar. He stepped closer, emotions trembling between them, and she sensed the fear inside him shift into fierce protectiveness. The truth was dawning, slowly, painfully. The war wasn't born from hatred. It was built from a lie designed to keep them separate, and the deeper they looked, the clearer it became that their minds weren't the node's mistake. They were its intention. The memories sharpened, revealing the first fracture, leaders on both sides misreading the node's awakening as a threat rather than a summons. Fear blossomed into conflict, conflict into war, and truth dissolved beneath generations of propaganda. She felt her chest tighten as the images ground into her, heavy with guilt, not her own. He watched her reaction, confusion flickering through him as if he was seeing her pain for the first time and didn't know how to bear it. When she reached out to steady herself, his thoughts rushed forward instinctively, offering warmth he didn't yet understand. Their bond pulsed brighter, stronger, reshaping the memory stream around them, like the universe was rearranging itself to accommodate the connection neither of them chose, but both needed. The landscape darkened, turning into a battlefield frozen in time. Smoke hung over shattered ground, echoing with ghosts of the first assault. She stepped forward, heart pounding as she watched the moment the war began. The node's signal blooming like light, and both species retreating in terror. He stood beside her, fists clenched, memories of creation and command threading through him like chains. She felt his turmoil crack open, not with rage but with sorrow, and it mirrored her own. The node hadn't called them to fight, it had called them to merge. The realization hummed between them, electric and overwhelming. She sensed him turning toward her, desperate for an answer she didn't have. If the war was a lie, what were they? The world cracked open again, revealing a final truth. Hidden chambers beneath the node, filled with hybrid blueprints older than both species. She gasped as she realized what she was seeing. Designs for beings that blended human emotion with alien strength, created not for war but for unity. He staggered back, his mind reeling under the weight of something he was never meant to know. She felt his shock spiral into fear. Fear not for himself, but for her, for what their bond meant, for what their worlds would do if they learned the truth. The light of the node flared around them, urging understanding, urging connection. And in that fragile, trembling moment, she recognized the truth neither dared to speak. They were the beginning of what had been denied. The chamber dissolved, hurling them back into reality with a force that knocked the breath from her lungs. She clutched the armrest, sweat streaking her temples as the truth burned inside her. He lifted his head slowly, eyes shimmering with emotions he couldn't hide anymore. Fear, hope, longing, and something dangerously close to devotion. The air shook with alarms as her commander stormed toward the chamber, shouting orders she barely heard. The alien overseer appeared on the opposite side, face twisted with panic. They both knew what she and the soldier had discovered, and they both knew what needed to happen next. Erase the bond, or erase them. Her pulse roared in her ears as she met the alien soldier's gaze. For the first time, neither of them looked afraid of each other, only of losing what they had found. The alarms faded as the mind link reopened, swallowing them into a world shaped by tension and trembling light. She felt his fear surge first, sharp, protective, desperate, urging her to turn back before the node pulled them any deeper. But the node's call rose around them, warm and ancient, weaving threads of their thoughts into a single pulse neither could break. Mountains of shifting crystal stretched before them, glowing with memories that didn't belong to either world. She sensed him beside her, his emotions raw and unguarded, as if the truth had stripped him bare. Every step forward blended their feelings, her doubt, his longing, her fear, his strength, until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The node was drawing them to its center, not to destroy them, but to reveal the shape of what they were becoming. And she knew, with a trembling certainty, that whatever waited ahead would change them forever. They descended into a chamber where the walls rippled like living memory. Images of countless beings, human, alien, hybrid, floated in strands of light, each one whispering stories of unity long forgotten. She felt the node pressing into her thoughts, urging her to see the pattern beneath the chaos. He reached for her, instinct guiding his movement, his mind trembling with questions he didn't know how to shape. She felt his confusion, his hope, and the steady beat of something tender blooming inside him. As their thoughts brushed, the chamber brightened, responding to their connection. The truth unfolded with quiet devastation. The node had been calling for them, specifically them, across centuries of silence. Because together, they were the key to unlocking what had been denied for generations. The floor melted into a pool of luminous energy that pulled them deeper, forming a bridge suspended over a void of swirling stars. Here, their thoughts echoed like voices carried by wind. She felt his heartbeat thrum through the link, steady and grounding, even as fear brushed the edges of her mind. He wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid for her. He didn't know what the merging meant, what part of himself he might lose, but he feared losing her more. She stepped closer, letting the warmth of his presence soften the panic clawing at her ribs. The node's voice rose in a steady hum, revealing the path forward. Their connection was no accident. It was the only way to restore the balance their worlds had shattered, but the price shimmered beneath the surface. One of them would have to surrender the boundaries of who they were. The bridge dissolved, leaving them standing before the node's heart, a sphere of shifting light that pulsed like a living sun. Energy rippled around them, bending to the rhythm of their shared emotions. She felt him flinch as waves of truth washed over them, revealing a future filled with unity, fear, rebellion, and sacrifice. He reached for her mind, not forcefully, but with a tenderness that made her chest tight. The node showed them a choice wrapped in sorrow and hope, to merge their consciousness and become the bridge between their species, or refuse and let the war continue until nothing remained. She saw the fear in his eyes, fear of being the one who survived if she didn't, and beneath it all a silent plea, "Let me bear the cost, not you." Light wrapped around them like a tidal wave, lifting them into a space where time felt thin and fragile. She felt his thoughts trembling, not with fear of death, but with fear of losing himself, and losing her. He opened his mind fully to her for the first time, offering everything he was and everything he wasn't sure he could be. Emotions crashed between them, raw and brilliant. Devotion, longing, fear, and a fierce love he didn't know how to name. She felt her own heart strain, torn between the duty she'd carried her whole life and the truth pulsing in their bond. The node held them in perfect stillness, waiting for their decision. And in that suspended moment, she realized the cost wasn't the merging itself. It was choosing which part of themselves they were willing to let go. The moment the final dive began, everything went silent, so silent it felt like the universe was holding its breath. She found herself standing in a vast, endless plain of white light, the kind that revealed truth instead of hiding it. He appeared beside her, not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as a man stripped to the fragile core of his being. Their thoughts brushed, trembling with everything they hadn't said, everything they were afraid to lose. The node's voice rose beneath them like a heartbeat, reminding them of the choice they could no longer escape: merge and reshape the future, or return to the world alone and unchanged. She felt his fear wrap around her. Fear of hurting her, fear of losing himself, fear of becoming something that might not resemble the man he was learning to be. But beneath it all, she felt something deeper, steadier, impossible to ignore. He wanted her to choose a life where neither of them had to stand alone again. Their surroundings shifted, revealing visions of what merging meant. Two minds folding into one, two hearts beating in rhythm, two lives becoming a single thread stretched across the stars. She felt the weight of every memory, every fear, every hope he carried, and he felt hers in return. The connection steadied them, binding their breaths as one. But the truth carried a sharp edge. The merging would not destroy one of them. It would transform both. A new being would rise in their place, carrying pieces of their identities, but neither fully human nor fully alien. She saw him turn toward her, eyes trembling with a question he didn't dare ask. Are you willing to lose who you are, to keep us alive? Her heart cracked under the weight of it, yet the node's warmth wrapped around her gently, reminding her that love was never about staying the same. It was about choosing who you become together. The chamber dissolved into a storm of gold and silver light as the node sensed their hesitation. It showed them the future that would unfold if they turned away. War spreading like wildfire, their species tearing themselves apart until nothing was left but dust and regret. Then it showed the other path, tentative peace, fragile hope, a new beginning forged by the bond they shared. He reached for her hand, his touch trembling, his thoughts full of the quiet truth he had never spoken. He didn't want to exist in a world where she wasn't beside him. She felt her heart tighten, breaking and healing all at once. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of the merging. She was afraid of walking back into a world where he would remain a distant echo instead of the pulse that had changed her life. And in that clarity, she found her answer. They stepped together into the heart of the node. Light rushed in from every direction, warm and weightless, wrapping around them like a living embrace. She felt his mind open, wide and vulnerable, offering every memory, every fear, every hope. She opened hers in return, letting him see the parts she had hidden even from herself. Their thoughts intertwined, slow at first, then faster, until emotion became light and light became language. She felt his heartbeat blend with hers, felt his strength cradle her fear, felt her clarity settle his confusion. The node pulsed once, twice, then shattered into a flood of brilliance as their identities melted into a single rising consciousness. There was no pain, only warmth. Only truth, only the realization that this was never a sacrifice. It was a beginning. Light faded, leaving a quiet that felt like dawn. A new being stood where two once had, formed of human heart and alien strength, memory woven with memory, love woven with light. The alarms that once filled the chamber had gone silent, as leaders from both sides stepped back in awe and fear. The merged consciousness opened its eyes, seeing the world with clarity neither species had ever known. The war no longer made sense. The lies no longer held weight. It spoke not with a voice, but with a resonance that filled the air, soft and absolute, reaching every heart that had ever learned to fear the other. And in that moment, the future shifted. Not because peace was forced, but because everyone finally saw what they could become together. The last thought that rose from the new being echoed like a promise. When truth wakes, love survives.